their homes behind.
This fire is absolutely roaring right now. Essentially, we're surrounded by flames. They're burning at the top of this cliff here, and then you can see the trees that are ignited over here, and the wind is sending embers down the mountain, igniting new spot fires.
Nearly 60,000 people now under evacuation orders as firefighters wage an all-out battle against the flames.
Mandatory evacuations. Please pack up and leave now.
The popular resort community of South Lake Tahoe evacuated. People stuck for hours on the highway trying to...
60,000 people. That's almost as bad as moving 1 million people from New Orleans.
Destroying 652 structures, including nearly 500 homes, and damaging 39 others. The Sierra at Tahoe Ski Resort surveying the damage to its buildings and turning its snowmaking machine into a makeshift water cannon to help beat back the encroaching flames.
Now, a huge concern for these firefighters right now is the fire-damaged trees that could potentially fall over. Now, we're told that we're in a safe place right now, but because of these ongoing firefighting efforts, all national forests in California will be closed starting today. Officials are expecting to see some pretty high winds in this area this morning, and the red flag warnings in many areas will extend through Wednesday. Guys?
Well, we're in an inferno there, Kana. Stay safe. A lot more coming up here on GMA, including a debate over...
It's because traditional vacuums can struggle with large particles like these, pushing them like a...
As you unfortunately know, it seems in this country we've made full-time jobs out of criticizing one another. But in the last week, speak to us again in more detail, Dale, about those doctors and nurses, many of whom haven't even seen their homes, haven't even seen their families, but they've been hunkered down at the hospital. Can you tell us more about that?
So, Stephanie, we went on lockdown very early Sunday morning at about 6 a.m., and we brought in a cadre of young doctors mostly across all of the medical and surgical specialties, nurses, respiratory therapists, pharmacists, as well as housekeeping staff and security staff and a number of others, everyone who is needed to make a hospital run. And at 7 a.m. on Sunday, the doors were locked, and we've all been here ever since. And I have not heard a single complaint. People are working happily and cheerfully, and they're doing everything they can possibly do to take care of all of the children, as well as a number of mothers and fathers who are here in lockdown with their children. And as you indicated, many of these folks have not seen their homes. They don't know that their homes are still standing or perhaps inundated with water. Some cases they have pets at home that are unattended. In some cases, they're separated from their families because they're mostly a young group. Many of them have young children, and those children and their spouses, for the most part, have been evacuated to safer areas. But I think that, anyone who thinks that young professionals today don't show the same dedication or aren't willing to work as hard as they once were should come and take a look at these people who are working here at Children's Hospital New Orleans. For me, as a more senior physician, it has been nothing less than inspiring, and I've never been prouder to be a pediatrician.
Well, this week isn't the first crisis you or all of your doctors and nurses have been dealing with. The last year and a half has been COVID 24/7. How much more difficult does that make things for you right now?
It compounds it, to be honest. All of these professionals who are in the hospital taking care of kids today, post-hurricane, they're the same individuals who are physically and emotionally exhausted after the past several months with RSV, which was a different kind of respiratory virus. We had a very big epidemic of that here in New Orleans, and that filled up our hospital. And then COVID-19. July was actually the busiest month in the 66-year history of our hospital in terms of the number of children admitted to the hospital, the number in our intensive care units, and the number in our emergency department. And so everyone was just working at 100% capacity going in. And the last thing in the world we needed was the Category 4 hurricane, but it chose to come at this particular time, and everyone has stepped up and done everything they can to keep providing first-rate care to the kids who need us.
Well then, Doctor, right now I am hoping a major philanthropist, a hotel chain, someone who can offer some relief, some appreciation, some treat for all of those workers at your hospital, because they certainly need a break. I can't imagine how exhausting this all must be for you. Thank you for everything that you do. I really appreciate it. And Morgan, thank you for being there. Coming up, thousands forced to flee in California as a raging wildfire is closing in. That's next.
As you can see, you don't have to be a genius to identify that something is going on in ways like we have never ever experienced before up onto this planet, towards being inundated by total bad luck. One horror story after another. If we as a surviving society intend to survive and intend for our children and our grandchildren to survive, we're going to have to stop and evaluate our lives and evaluate what we're doing and why we're doing it, and identify without a doubt, in certainty, that we are truly in the hollow hand of God. And I'm just not talking about any old God. I'm talking about the righteous God. I'm talking about the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, the God of the Lord Jesus Christ. And until we get things right, not only with our God, but with ourselves pertaining to the planet, we're going to continue to see these catastrophic events on one level or the other on this magnitude again and again and again. And what you're looking at basically is simply just the media of what's happening here in the United States on this side of the continent. They're having just as many horror stories in other areas of the world like we are, but it's so much of it we can't post it all because it's just too much of it. Just like all the shootings, just like all the drug overdoses. There's so much of it, there's no way of identifying just exactly how bad it truly is. It's overwhelming. We have been inundated by horror after horror after horror in the past 30 plus years, going back to the late 80s. And that's the core of where we took the wrong turn. Instead of turning right, we turned left. We had people that took their eye off the ball, that has allowed this to escalate and get out of hand the way that it is right now, and consequently we're all paying the price. In my 60 years of living, after me working Katrina pertaining to HAZBAC and being associated with various government agencies pertaining to crisis centers, and me working other crises all over the United States, I have never seen the bombardment of what we're being bombarded with right now, from anything from the illegal aliens that's coming over the Rio Grande out of Mexico and South America, from all the diseases including COVID, to the floods, to the famines. I mean, they're just now getting into their heart of their what you'd call their burning season, or their high risk season out west. And we have been seeing this now for the past, give or take, for the past 3 months, intensifying towards burning home after home after home. seeing thousands of people be rooted up from their livelihoods and displaced, similar like what just got through happening in New Orleans. I mean, the governor, I think it was the governor, may have been the mayor, that told all the New Orleans people that was fortunate enough to get out of there, do not return back. Do not come back. That the whole city is uninhabitable. Do not come back until we tell you to come back, because the primary substance of a society like that being able to survive is electricity and water and sewer. And if you don't have electricity, water, and sewer, you're basically in an uninhabitable area that is unsustainable for life. And I can understand the mayor or the governor, whoever it was that put out that order, because basically all they would be doing would be adding insult to injury. If all the a million plus people come into New Orleans at one time, it would cause havoc, total havoc, in that particular location. You got to understand that all them people in New Orleans and down in the Louisiana swamp areas have been bombarded, including southern Texas, for several years now, of one storm event after another storm event. And you know why they can't wake up and understanding that a lot of this is because of their livelihoods, and a lot of this is because we did not take global warming serious enough in the 70s and 80s and throughout the 90s, and we thought that we could just put it on a back burner and it would, out of sight, out of mind, it would just go away. And now we're realizing it ain't going away. If anything, it's intensifying. So let's watch this story towards the ending of this particular filming here and try to be open-minded in understanding that we have never, ever seen anything like this occurring on the planet, of one horrible event after another.
What's next? Fire continues. Happening right now in the state of California, the Calder fire continues to rage on, forcing thousands of additional evacuations along Lake Tahoe. And as firefighters continue to battle these flames, officials say the fire is only 15% contained. Steve Patterson is on the ground in California with the latest.
Stephanie, good morning. State of emergency for South Lake Tahoe. Intense moments for firefighters currently on the front lines, engaged in a desperate battle, to not mince words, to save South Lake Tahoe. The eastern edge of the Caldor fire currently spreading, rapidly spreading, currently expanding out 20,000 acres again overnight, but pushing that eastern front into the path of homes that are in South Lake Tahoe. Officials estimate there's currently about 20 to 22,000 homes in the path of flames. So again, the mission from firefighters that are not just being shipped in from the state, but in different corners of the country, the number one priority is to save.
What did he just say? 25,000 homes?
That are in South Lake Tahoe. Officials estimate there's currently about 20 to 22,000 homes in the path of flames. So again, the 22,000 homes in the path of flames. So again, the mission from firefighters that are not just being shipped in from the state, but in different corners of the country, the number one priority is to save that town. Right now, though, they're up against it. They're dealing with fresh red flag winds, new warnings that may push into Wednesday, including steep terrain, extreme heat during the day, and this dry brush, which has covered the state because of the drought, because of the climate that has caused the drought, that has caused so much cause for concern, especially not only in the front lines, but in several national forests across the state. Officials have made the decision to close down national forests because they're so focused on these key major fires, 13 of them burning across the state, including the largest, the Dixie Fire, and of course the Caldor Fire, now nearing 200,000 acres, burning for more than 2 weeks. Only 15% contained at this point. Firefighters are doing all they can. They have to push back against every ember because of how dry the brush is and how much fuel there is between this patch of the fire and these next set of houses, which may push over into the next 24 to 48 hours. That is the time window that firefighters really have to get a hold of this thing, or it may spread on even into Nevada. Stephanie, back to you.
That is the time window, and it is running out. Wow. A fire, a hurricane, a pandemic, and a war. That's what we just covered in this hour. If you are feeling stressed, panic, your anxiety on high, you are not alone. Take a deep breath. We're going to get through this together. Thank you for watching. That wraps up this hour. I'm Stephanie Rule. Hallie Jackson picks up coverage on the other side of the break.
Waldorf.
It's pretty obvious that something horrible has happened. Something horrible has happened. And because of it, we're all suffering the consequences on what has occurred. I have made statements before, and I'll make them again, that there will be a group of people that will rise from the ashes, that will rise from the heartache. There will be a group of people pertaining to the meek inheriting the earth that will invalidate good over evil. Right now, we're in that transformation period where people are just now waking up, the deer in the headlight, basically going through shock. We must continue on the mission as Mr. Joe Biden, our president, our chief and commander, has repeated. We must continue on the path of what our ancestors intended for us to be on. But at the same time, we must identify the book of Revelations towards it being the gospel, that we're basically in that timeline right now where it talks about the woes. We're in one of the woes period, or era, where God is basically lifted his hand and allowed for Satan to ravage this planet. We must identify who our true enemy is and be willing to step out on the front lines to be able to help and assist with these terrible, terrible catastrophes that are now plaguing all of our land. We need to pray diligently for the first line workers, for the firemen, for the nurses, for people that are taking the brunt of the blow on the front lines. We have to remember that they are our life in generally speaking towards trying to help us through all of this. If there's ever been a time, if you've ever had any type of desire to want to become a Christian, please go back or commit of being that true born again believer that Christ intended for us to be. As I said, there will be a remnant of people that will rise above this. There will be an anointing. There will be peace, as it talks about, and utopia. in the opening of the second seal. But we must first get through what we're going through right now in identifying these problems. Joe Biden nailed it pertaining to the global crisisness that is now wreaking upon to the planet. We have to be able to take this and use it in a productive way and use it for the glory of God and for the privileges of ourselves, if we're going to be a surviving society. These things are real. The floods and the hurricanes are real. What happened in Waverly, Tennessee is real. COVID is real towards people dying. The war is real. The heathens and the barbarians that live over in the Middle East are real. Our enemy is real. But so is God. So is the forces of good. And if we'll bind together in this time of need, I truly believe that God will show favor. And He will heal our land. And He will heal our planet. And we will see a revolution. We will see a revival. We will see that in which what God is trying to alert us and wake us up towards what's going on. Good luck to all of us as we end our program. Pray for our troops. Pray for our country. Pray for our allies over on other parts of the world. Pray for Jerusalem. Pray for our frontline workers. And most of all, pray to God that He'll be merciful to us, to lead us not into temptation, but to deliver us from this evil. We're all going through this together. And may God have mercy on all of us. As we end our program, good luck and shalom.